Now, is it me or is America becoming a little bit more expensive than it was previous to COVID, right? Because before COVID, prices were really low. No one was really complaining about gas, even though we complain about gas all the time. Groceries with considerable prices, because I need for you to do something for me right now before we even get started and look at your last grocery receipt. Look at your last gas bill. Look at your rent. Look at your mortgage. And then turn on the television because Washington is throwing a party, right? They throw parties, all these different types of dinners, and you're not on the guest list because here's a split screen for you guys.
It isn't fair.
Before we get even to the statistics and the numbers, and this is not about one president or the last three presidents, whether it be about Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump. On one side, the government just told us inflation is cooling. The June Consumer Price Index came in at around 3.5% year over year, down from 4.2% the month before. And the prices actually fell 0.4% from May. The biggest 1 month drop in years. On the other side of the same screen is your kitchen table, no less, because that is where the real data is, in my opinion. I can show you guys all these statistics. I can tell you guys about this president and what they did, that president and what they've done. But the true statistic is how much are you paying for groceries? How much are you paying for gas? So which one is lying to you? Is it neither? Is it either? And that's the tribe. Let me walk you through it, because the headline number right now is 3.5%. And it's a real number, no less, right? But when you pop the hood and look at why it dropped, the story changes very, very completely. The relief didn't come from your boss finally paying you what you're worth, because you'll never get that. It came from the gas pump. From most of the spring, oil and gasoline prices were soaring because of the war with Iran. And those spikes were hammering families in March, April, May, and even in June. That pressure finally eased. Gas prices fell on paper, and that one category dragged the whole average down. So when they say inflation cooled, what they really mean is the war stopped burning a hole in your gas tank for 1 month. That's pretty much it. That is not the same thing as your money going further, because that's what they will have you to believe.
Fact.
That is a war price hangover wearing off, not prosperity. Now, here's a part that the celebration leaves out.
Pause.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the government's own scorekeeper, put it out its real earnings report the same week. And it showed that from June of 2025 to June of 2026, real average hourly earnings, meaning you pay.
Damn.
And it showed that from June of 2025 to June 2026, real average hourly earnings, meaning your pay after inflation, went up 0.1% over a whole year. And let me put that very plainly, your nominal wage, the number of the check grew about 3.8%. Sounds decent, does it not? But inflation ate 3.5% of that. So when you do the math, right, working folks walked away with roughly $4 more a week in a real buying power. $4, right? That's not a raise. Families, that's a rounding error. You can't buy a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread with that raise. They're bragging about it, so to speak. Wages went up, salaries went up. And even the one bright spot has an asterisk on it. Analysts pointed out that the single biggest real wage bump in a year happened in June, but it happened because gas got cheaper, not because paychecks got bigger. Their own words, it may not last, so they're selling you a 1 month gas discount and calling it an economic miracle. And I believe that President Trump actually allowed some reserve gas to be released. And now you see gas is all the way back up again. I mean, states like Alabama, Texas, all these other places over $3.25, $3.50, $3.60.
That escalated quickly.
Some are even $4. Don't even go to California. We already know what their gas prices are, right? And that is in their own words. And again, we know that this is not going to last because it hasn't, because right now gas is almost $4 in some states and gas is $4 in other states. This month, they mark 1 year since the working families tax cuts. And the press release are wall to wall. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, a car loan deduction, a blue collar boom, 6 million jobs sustained, $1 trillion in output preserved. And look, some of that is actually real. Nearly 70% of filers who got a cut earned under $100,000. If you got a break on your tip income or your overtime, that's money in your pocket. And I'm not going to insult you by pretending it isn't, because it is, right? Because here's what you slow down and pay attention to. The same month that the White House is throwing confetti, the Federal Reserve's own regional contacts are reporting the opposite from the ground. Because families cutting back, businesses still raising prices, low wages and rural workers in places like Chicago and Minnesota saying it's just getting more expensive to get to and from work. And some people are going to throw in the whole migrant crisis, the illegal immigrant crisis, and that a lot of scams are raising prices just to kind of throw in the economics of it. But this is besides that. It really doesn't have a data point within the metrics and statistics that we're going to see here. There's a tax cut with real numbers, and there are millions of families whose budgets are still bleeding. When somebody only shows you one side of that, they're not informing you, they're selling you.
Yo, you know what? You're so freaking obsessed.
Now, let me bring it all home for you guys, because this is where this channel goes where the cable news panels won't. Inflation is not an equal opportunity predator. It hunts the people with the least cushion first. Forbes ran the numbers this summer, and the headline said it plain. Inflation is rising again, and Black men are paying a higher price. And the big question is always why? Why is this always racial? Why? Why is this always predicated upon someone demographic, even if we get into the economics of things? Because whether you measure it by household wealth, home ownership, business ownership, or just liquid savings in the bank, Black families walk into every inflationary period with less margin for error.
I need a site as sharp as my work.
I deliver fuel. I need an app.
I make skincare. I need a store.
I bake. People should be able to order.
Whatever you're building, built right, kept running, Lova dead. Here's a number that should stop you very coldly. The median Black household has about $44,000 in net worth. The median white household is $284,000. Believe me, that's not a gap that we keep talking about, the racial wealth gap. That is a canyon, okay? That is a Titanic of a difference, roughly 6.5 times that is.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
So when the price of eggs and gas and rent and mortgage all move at once, a white house with a $250,000 cushion feels like a very large pinch, doesn't that? Because a Black household with $44,000 feels like an emergency some inflation rates may state. Completely different survival math here. That's the part that the 3.5% headline can never really tell you, because they don't really dive into the vivid details. And we're going to look at some other numbers here, right? So currently, as we look at this last year, they're talking about 2.6%, but there's a lot of things that have occurred over the last year, believe it or not. And we know whether it be the assistance to Israel and their conflict, or as the UN would state, their genocidal nature when it comes to Gaza and the Palestinians, we've been funding that war. We've been funding the war with Ukraine as well as with Russia. So we're forking out billions of dollars to assist other nations in their wars. That's number one. Then we're in a war of our own with Iran, because maybe a little birdie told us, hey, you know, they're still trying to make and create nuclear weapons. We got the reports. Well, we didn't get those reports because none of our intelligence agencies, our intelligence agencies told us that they're still trying to make these nuclear weapons, okay? And we're talking about Israel, no less, okay? And I don't know if the reports are real or not, but that's what they're stating. And as we look at this year over year over year over year, and I'm just showing you guys here very plainly because I want you to see it for yourself. Now, the time between 2019 to roughly the middle to end of 2023, there was a specific incident, a series of events that occurred, the reason why inflation rose to 9.1%. It's called COVID-19. The COVID-19 crisis at the peak of June 2022 rose to 9.1%. Now, if you see inflation prior to that, people always say that inflation average has always been around 2% to 2.5%. So I think this is what we should do, which is very important to some people.
Pause.
Who was president during these times? Okay. And this is not to blame one president, because each presidency has their own ups and downs. They have their own crises and celebrations, whatever it may be, right? All the different legislations that they input, all the different countries and tribes and wars and humanitarian efforts that they use our tax dollars, okay? And if someone were to explain to me that the reason why we fork out billions of dollars to all these other countries, either to help them with their wars and conflicts, either to feed them with the USAID, USA, so to speak, is to keep people in their own countries instead of having everyone flock to America. But you know what's been different? That really hasn't stopped the massive amount of immigrants coming to America, whether they be legal or illegal. Because if you're going to continue to send aid to my country and everyone thinks that America is rich, like, okay, on the surface, we're saying we're the richest country in the world, we're the most powerful country in the world. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, America, believe it or not, and some of you may not agree, it's becoming very, very crowded. America is a country of immigrants, not initially. America was roughly around 3 to 4 groups, right? We have the Native Americans that most people are familiar with, and the indigenous people that kind of look like me, believe it or not. But the red Siberian, Bering Strait crossing Native Americans with that sort of red color skin tone, no less. And then the indigenous people who had dark melanin in their skin, okay? We'll just count them all as native and indigenous, right? So that's one group. Then you had the European colonizers. That's 2 groups. Then you had the enslaved Africans that were brought over on ships. That's 3 groups, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I say 3 to 4 groups. So that was the foundation of America. Then all these other groups came later, the Italians, the Irish, the Chinese, all these other people came later, so to speak. So that is the very bedrock and foundation of the people that essentially, okay, that started off this thing that we call America. So now that we have the basis of that, I want you guys to look at when President Obama was president, okay, which is very imperative in my opinion, because we need to look at what he inherited and what he did with that. And again, as I told you before, you had all these different events and incidents during each presidency. He was president for 8 years. So as we look at this, he left the presidency at roughly 2%, okay, which has been the average. And look at 2012 and 2013, 2014 and 2015. Now, 2014 and 2015, I don't know what legislation he passed. I didn't dive that deep, but damn, can we go back to less than 1% inflation? That means, in my opinion, when I see inflation down at that amount, not the Great Depression rates. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, if you go too low, because look at the Great Depression of 1929, it was roughly negative inflation. So that means that the country isn't growing, because some people equate that when we stay within the 2 to 2.5 percentile, and we start reaching 3, that the country shows a bit amount of growth, no less. Okay, because things are still affordable. But when we're talking about roughly a 2%, that has been the average. We've seen America progress significantly. Okay, so this is Barack Obama's annual rate of inflation. Okay, pretty good, no less. So President Trump comes into office. Okay, let's look at these numbers very, very quickly. This is his 4-year stint. This is 45, President 45, President Trump. 2017, 2.1, 18, 2.4, 2019, 1.8, 2020, 1.2. All good numbers, in my opinion. All good numbers were under 2.5%. Then Biden gets in office, okay? And again, this is not talking about any one president, okay? I want to make sure that you guys understand that. We're just going down the numbers. When it comes to Biden, if we look at the yearly breakdowns, 2021, do not forget that COVID occurred in 2019, roughly. The bottom, the end of 2019 going into 2020, 4.7%. He inherited that from President Trump. 2022, 8.0%. 2023, 4.1%. And as he was leaving office, 2.9%. Not bad. Not bad if it rose 8%, then the next year it decreased down almost roughly 4%, and then it decreased down also another 3.1%. Now, President Trump comes off, there's no pandemic. There's no national crisis other than, Iran is trying to get nuclear weapons, let's bomb them, which we did.
I didn't appreciate it then. I don't appreciate it now.
Late 2025, we bombed them. But I want you to look at the inflation numbers here, ladies and gentlemen. And again, have we been here 2 years? Is it 1 year? 2025, 3%. March, 2.4%. June, 2.7%. September, 3%. December, 2.7%. So we're still doing pretty good, no less, right? 3% is still decent. January to February, 2.4%, phenomenal. March, 3.3%, May, 4.2%. So all of these things are indicators of an unstable economy because of the large fluctuations of increase that the American people is enduring. And then you factor in the unemployment rate. On the surface, it says roughly 4.2%, 4.4% of unemployment. But when it comes to certain demographics like foundational Black Americans, our unemployment rate is 6.6%. It wasn't like that under the Obama administration, under the Biden administration, under the first Trump administration. It was not like that. Our unemployment rate was much lower than that. So I think it's very important. Here's another thing. Gas prices and grocery bill prices, right? So when we look at these particular numbers and we look at the average grocery bill in America, right, with giving it a 10-year swing or a 10-year sort of decade average, $700 more today in the past 10 years. It states here that the average household grocery bill in the United States has risen significantly over the past 10 years, climbing from an average monthly total of around $400 to $500 a decade ago to nearly $700 or more today. Driven heavily by post-2020 food inflation tracked by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, meaning that we're still reeling and recovering from COVID, believe it or not. Okay, so there's a lot going on. And here's the gas prices, ladies and gentlemen. The average residential national gas monthly bill in the U.S. generally ranges from 80 to 100, driven by annual residential price averages tracked by the U.S. Energy Information. And we continue to see under particular presidents the things and events that attributed to the inflation or deflation or the rise or decrease of amount of gas and how much it actually costs. So currently, gas is more expensive than it's ever been, except for the spike that you see in 2023. 2025 to 2026 average around $12 to around $15, depending on the seasonal intensity. And we have to, contribute that to the war between Ukraine and Russia, the war with America and Iran, the war with Israel and Palestinian, or as they would say, the terrorists they're in. But when you destroy almost damn near half a nation, I don't know who you're at war with. I'm very confused about it, but that's okay. It's not that I know everything, but, I think the truth is in the bombings. The truth is in the deaths of all these thousands of people, and a lot of them were kids. But that's another topic for another day. As we look at these things, family, it's very dire because food at home was still running about 3% higher than a year ago, and rent and shelter costs barely budge. Now, I want you to think about who spends the biggest slice of their paycheck on food, rent, and getting to work. It's not the folks that are making $284,000 cushions. It's the family living check to check, where every one of those categories is a bigger percentage of everything that we've got. So the average American got a break at the pump, but the household income, the household with the least margin, barely felt it because their money was already spoken for by the categories that didn't come down. That's how a good report and a hard month live in the same economy at the same darn time.
You're not wrong.
So ask the Blacklogic questions here. Who benefits from you believing the economy is fixed? The people running for re-election. Who benefits from you believing that the economy is collapsing? The people running against them. And who gets ignored in both sides? You do. I do. The working family does, right? that already knows the truth from the checkout line, no matter what the chevron says. This is the game both parties would take one true number, strip the context of it, and wave it in your face like a magic trick. This is the thing about statistics and metrics. The real truth, the real metrics, the real data is your bank account. When you look at an aggregate of 3 months, 6 months, a year of how much you paid in groceries, and primarily most people pay and buy the same food. Most people go to the same gas station. So it's very easy for you to look every 2 weeks, every week, whenever you guys get gas or you charge your vehicles, because a lot of people have EVs now, or every time you go to the grocery store, like my wife, right? She goes to roughly 3 to 4 grocery stores when she goes shopping. She usually goes on Saturday or Sunday, or even sometimes Thursday or Friday, depending if she has the time or not. And she goes to Costco's and Trader Joe's and Sprouts.
It's a work of art.
And I think, and Whole Foods. That's mostly the 4 grocery stores she goes to. And believe it or not, out of all of those, probably Costco's and Sprouts will save you the most money, because we already know Whole Foods mean whole paycheck, because everything is organic and everything is natural and no GMO and no this. And again, as we get older, we try to live better, healthier lives. But believe it or not, food that they slap the organic label on is very expensive. And I know organic, it's subjective, is it not? Because you can have an organic farm, but what's the runoff? What was the previous things that they were growing? Was the ground even fertilized with pesticides and fungicides to stop bugs? And did they use those things prior? It's still in the soil. So again, it's very subjective, but nevertheless, most people, as they get older, if they can afford it, they buy these organic and non-GMO, no MSG, and all these other chemicals that supposedly shouldn't derive within our food. I digress. The flat real wages are real. The cheaper June gas is real. Here we are at the end of July. The Black Wealth Canyon is real. Your job, our job on this particular channel is to hold all of it at the same time, because that's the only way you make a decision that protects your household instead of somebody's campaign. Because they're out here trying to get your vote. And you should really be looking at your bottom line. Yeah, you should be looking at transgenders playing in women's sports and vice versa, whether they're going to get bathrooms or not. You should be voting on the war of, funding Israel with Palestinian and their terrorist groups. And should we continue to bomb Iran or go into a peace deal? Should we still fund Ukraine against Russia? Should we have humanitarian efforts around the world? Should we stop immigration, or should we slow down immigration? Yeah, there's so many talks. But at the end of the day, Pause. At the end of the day, let me tell you, everybody is selfish when it comes to their money and their family, right? You want to make sure that you have enough money in your bank account. You want to make sure that you're saving enough money for your retirement. Because nobody, I would like to believe that nobody wants to work until the day that they die, unless they just love their job or love their business, right? Because someone's like, I just want to go to Tahiti. I want to go to Bora Bora and just put my toes in the sand and let the waves crush up against the shore and just enjoy life for a second here. Instead of working my fingers to the bone each and every day, regardless if you love it or not, you're still working. Some people are like, I love it so much I don't feel like I'm working. Don't worry, you're working. You have the time that you go to work, you have your daily routines and your schedules, people you have to talk to, people you have to meet up with. You're working. You're working. And believe me, you wouldn't have gray hair if you wasn't working, right? Because if you watch the diet of a CEO, they had this guy on there talking about stress levels, and that when people who seem to be more relaxed majority of the time, they gray a lot later in life versus people who are under a great immense amount of stress, they gray earlier in life. I want you guys to think about the Obama presidency. You look at when he came into office and then when he left office, right? He had dark hair, and after that first 4-year term, how his hair grayed significantly, because it's the amount of stress of an entire nation on your back. So we understand why he grayed as quickly as he did. And it looked like they're gray and slowing, or maybe it's just all gray at this time. But nevertheless, don't let a headline set your budget. Your receipts set your budget. Track your own real numbers. What you spent this month versus the same month last year. That is your inflation rate, not what they report. And it's the only one that pays your bill. Second, if you qualify for a lot of these deductions, like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, the car loan break, every dollar, believe me, claim every dollar. Don't leave money on the table out of spite for whoever signs the bill. Money doesn't have a party, right? Money say, you know what? I like the conservative side more than I like the Democratic or liberal side. No, money doesn't have a side. And this is the long game. The wealth canyon didn't open by accident. It won't close by accident either. Home ownership, business ownership, and financial literacy in our community are not side hustle. They are the whole ball game. And that's how you build a cushion so the next inflation spike is a pitch and not an emergency. Because for a lot of us, it really is. And fourth, I want you to really sit with this one. Stop letting anybody on either side tell you how you feel about your money. A politician standing at a podium in Washington does not know what you paid for chicken this week because, you know, I really want to eat better. I really want to do better. So I got organic chicken, which was $3 or $4 more than the regular old feed 'em and non-GMO and non-organic chicken actually was. A cable panel arguing about the vibe of the economy has never seen your bank app on the 28th of this month. You are the world leading expert on your own household.
Yes, definitely.
So when the confetti says one thing and your account says another, you're not confused. You're not ungrateful. You're not missing something. You are simply the one person in this whole conversation who's actually paying the bill. Trust that. If anything, trust your bank account, trust your receipts, trust the amount of money that you're spending each and every day and each and every month. Build around that and don't let a headline gaslight you out of the truth your own hands already know.
Thank you for that perspective.
These numbers may look separate. The Consumer Price Index, also known as a CPI report, a tax cut press release, a wealth study, but they're all connected by one thing: power. Who gets to define what's a good economy means, who gets to celebrate it, and who gets left doing the math at the kitchen table at midnight. The headline says cooling. That's what inflation is. Your card says otherwise. Trust your card, trust your bank account, and drop your real grocery numbers in the comments so folks can see we're all doing the same math. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with somebody who needs to hear the truth behind the headlines. See, on this particular channel, ladies and gentlemen, we don't perform outrage. That's very easy to get emotion behind this. We diagnose the power. We give you the information so you can go off and live in better lives. Join gas programs where they give you 2 and 5 and 10% off each gallon of gas that you have, whether it be Chevron or Exxon or whatever gas station you go to. Join particular clubs that give you discounts on food. Because at the end of the day, no matter what's going on in the world, or this nation, your state, your county, your local government, the only thing that we really can depend on is what's in your bank account.